Chapter 84. I try to think, but I can't. He's alive. Mum screws up her face in puzzlement. Alive? Of course he isn't alive. She looks hurt and puzzled, but then her mouth starts to turn up at the corners, and I just don't know what to think. Did I not tell you? He just shot dead in cold blood by a gang of trained weasels, she pauses. He's in the bunker, daft lad, where he always is. Go and tell him that supper's nearly ready. Honestly, Al. And she walks off into the kitchen, shaking her head and smiling. It's at this point that I actually wonder if I can stand any more uncertainty and anxiety, and I think like I'm going to throw up as I leave the back door and go down to the steps to the bunker. The old metal submarines type door is gone, replaced by a normal door, and there's a smell that is both strange and familiar. I step through the doorway and try to take it all in at once, and it's very hard. And there he is, with his back to me. He hears my footsteps, he turns, and it's definitely him. And for some reason, I don't rush forward and hug him. I just stand there and say, and he says, "Hello, matey," without really looking at me. I want to rush forward and hug him, but I can't. I can't move. Instead, I look round me. One of the walls of the bunker is lined from top to bottom with small wire-fronted cages. There must be 40 of them, with water dispensers clipped onto the front, and each one of them there are 1 or 2 hamsters, brown ones, grey ones, big ones, small ones. 1 or 2 cages have rosettes tied on with wire, and there are framed certificates above the desk and a bookshelf, and I immediately spot the copy of Hamster Fancying for Beginners by Dr. A. Borgstrom. And I'm just staring at all this in delighted wonder when Dad comes up to me with his hands cupped. "Look here," he says. And he opens his hands to show me a tiny brown baby hamster. "This is Alan Shearer. Here, take him." I can't say anything, and even if I could, it would only be something stupid like, "What? What? How?" He is the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson of the hamster that I found in my shed when I was 12, he says, counting off the greats on his fingers. He takes the baby hamster back and puts it in one of the cages. And I still haven't said anything. Dad turns to me and looks at me a little quizzically. "You okay?" I nod, and he checks out my clothes. "Nice jacket, Al. I used to have..." And he stops, and he's just staring at me and blinking, and I stare back, and as if 30 years melt away in a space between us, there among the hamsters. Eventually, after the longest time, he says, "Al, sing." I nod, and that's when we hug. The longest, hardest, most intense hug of all time. "You trusted me," I said into his chest. I feel him give his little head nod and say, "Like I've never trusted anyone before." After a few minutes or an hour or 30 years, he looks at me closely and smiles. "You and I have got a lot of catching up to do." And that's great, because my dad is hugging me and I'm not going anywhere. Chapter 85. And that's pretty much it. Did I change the world? Well, I changed mine and Dad's and Mum's and Grandpa Byron's. I've told them all everything, but only Dad really understands. He dug out my letter from the drawer of his old stuff, and we all looked at the selfies on my mobile, and even then there were still loads of unanswered questions. For example, the night it all happened, I had left the house, this house, for about an hour without saying where I was going. That was the me that had been living with Mum and Dad up until then, not me. And then the other me, sent that letter to Alan Shearer, with Alan Shearer, and then the world changed, and I say, and then, like it's a linear progression of time, one incident after the other, but as I now know, or think I do, that's not how it works. It's all very confusing. For a while I was worried that the other me, my doppelganger, was going to return from his walk and stroll back into the house, which would have been totally awkward, but it seems like that's not going to happen after all. I often wonder where that me is, or the Grandpa Byron with the bad memory, or the mum married to Roddy and no children. Do they exist in some other parallel dimension? Or did they cease to exist when I delivered that letter and Alan Shearer to a 12-year-old pie, and this world became reality instead? I hope it's the last one, but I guess I'll never know now, and maybe that's for the best. Anyway, I'm pretty confident that the whole thing will be our family's secret. Auntie Hypatia still lives in Canada, but seems to be much more part of our lives than before. I mean, before I'd only met her once, and Grandpa Byron hardly ever mentioned her. Now she's on Skype all the time. It was a long conversation with Mum though, and I know it's been hard for her. I think she's okay with it all, but she really doesn't want to know any of the details, any of the time travel stuff. Honestly, it does my head in, she says, and I can't blame her really. But I think she's pretending about being confused. This morning she got a package from Amazon that contained a fridge magnet. The background was a starry sky and the words were this: time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, and time future contained in the past. T.S. Eliot, 4 quartets. Which actually is kind of what Dad was saying all along. She tried for me to get to read the rest of the poem, but it's like pages and pages long. I'll probably read it when I'm older. I have tried to tell her about Steve and Carly and my life with him and her, but she doesn't want to know, at least not yet. And now there's only one thing niggling at me really, and it's Carly. I keep thinking of the high five we exchanged in the taxi on the way back from Graham and Bella. It might not seem much, but compared with the open hostility that had preceded, that high five was like a peace treaty after a war. Then I think of the terror on her face when she found me in her room the other day. For that matter, I even start feeling sorry for kicking Jolly and Dancy in that way. But only a bit, if I'm honest. I want to change all of this, and ignoring it won't help. I remember Grandpa Byron's words during the last but one, and only one of only 2 rows. Escaping is not changing, Al. I have an idea. Well, I say idea like it's something special, but all I do is send her a text. I thought about going to her Facebook page and getting all mystical, but I figured that I'd exploited that spiritual side of her before, and I feel a bit different towards her now anyway. Remember the picture of Carly that I took the night that we did the seance? Cross-legged behind the mirror and candle arrangement? She said she'd send it to me, and the first time I charged my phone, up it popped like a strange echo of another dimension. I can easily send it to her. I add the message, "You won't remember this, but I do." And then, because I don't want her to think that I'm stalky or anything, I add my name. My name's Al, I'm not a stalker, and then I add a smiley face, then change it to a big smiley face, which is friendlier than a wink. It's going to be quite interesting for Carly, or freaky, as she'll probably say it, to receive a very recent photo of herself doing some kind of goth ritual that she can't remember. I hit send before I can think too much about it. Then there's the little matter of school, which starts again next week after half-term break. I know, it's far too soon and I feel sick with nerves about it, but there's no getting out of it. It's a different school for me, at least. I'm going to the secondary at Culvercott that I set fire to in a parallel dimension, now called the Sir Henry Percy Academy. It's a lot different now. Apparently there's a new gym and a science building, and Mrs Spetro, who's now the senior administrator and probably close to retirement, has got a big new computer, as have all the classrooms, and there's dozens in the ICT department. It's going to be a bit weird at first because there'll be kids there that I know from primary school, but I won't know anything about their last 4 years. I'm not sure how to handle that, to be honest, but if I keep my head down for the first few weeks, I should be okay. I'm thinking of concocting some sort of story of a brain injury or something that's left my memory affected. Massive memory loss would be believable, just about, and Grandpa Byron thinks it's hilarious. Okay, now, here's the funny thing. Remember Grandpa Byron's copy of the Memory Palace of the Sri Kalampa, the one he gave to me, and I gave back to the other Grandpa Byron with a note left on Pie's bed? Well, Grandpa Byron, the real Grandpa Byron, in this reality, still has his copy. How does that work? How many copies are there? How many Grandpa Byrons are there? And come to think of it, how many me's are there? It's just been the one me all the way through this adventure, and I know that because I can remember it. Our memories make us who we are, says Grandpa Byron, when he agrees to teach me his method for memorising every day of your life, and I tell you, he is so pleased to be asked. Choose one moment in every day that is worth cherishing. Welcome that moment into your memory palace, nurture it always, and it will never leave you. On warm spring afternoons like this one, I often go down to the promenade. It's a proper promenade now, not just a level bit on top of the seawall. There's a railing that I can lean on and look out over the sea and remember the boy called Pie and his new friend Al, who had a hamster called Alan Shearer. And then I pick up my pace and head home because 1, Mum has made lasagna, 2, Dad'll be back from home base with a new Hamsterdam, 3, my phone has just pinged with an incoming text from Carly, and 4, Grandpa Byron will be waiting for me to watch Mind Games. The end.